just to hear that steel come down the track.
A railway postal clerk's job went far beyond simply delivering the mail. Every day before going out on the train, clerks prepared postal labels, facing slips, and other materials needed. In addition to the everyday preparation was the studying. Every 6 months, clerks were tested on maps of railway routes and towns, also known as schemes, and had to receive a 97% or higher to keep their job.
You showed up usually about 2 hours ahead of time because you had to get the railroad car ready to start working. You had to put, the pouches up and labels in the holders and stuff, and then if there was, the post office brought mail over early, you start working on it.
We'd work, it varied, but 3 or 4 hours we'd work in the station. Up here in Chicago, we'd work before the train left.
Well, we had schemes, which was like the state you were studying. They call that a scheme. And they had the routes, had another book which had routes in it, trains routes, the truck routes that you would connect to.
The schemes that you studied from, they gave you a printed book with every town and every route that it would be dispatched over, but they changed quite frequently, and every week you'd get a change sheet. You'd have to cut those out and paste them over the ones that were in the book so that you stayed up to date on how the mail went. You take that and then preparing your labels and your facing slips and everything for they didn't pay you for anything that you didn't earn.
Well, you had to do a lot of studying. The cards, you had to study them on your own time at home. You had to take a test, I think usually it was about every 6 months, a state or a city. And basically, you just had to memorize them.
Had one of those big maps hanging on the wall and a box of cards, which was about 1,000 cards per box. And you studied, and you studied, and you would take the card and see if you could find it on the map. And after you studied for a long time, as soon as you look at the card, you knew where it was on the map.
We had to learn all the towns in every state on our line, from Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, New York State, Massachusetts. It depends on what job you're on, whether you're working letters, you're working papers and parcel post, or doing the local. And you had to take a test about every 6 months. And you had to pass, I think, 97% of it. And you had study cards, little cards that told you the name of the town, and on the back of them was where the mail went, certain lines or such.
That's why you got paid for like 48 minutes. That was an hour, because you had to do so much studying and also keep your schemes up, your schedules, and then you had to get your supplies, like your labels stamped up, and if you were working a pouch or rack or a paper case, you had to get your labels stamped up and laid out to label the things up. So there was quite a bit to do on your days
labels,
off also.
You'd set them up so they just run right in your cases. After you hung your case, you could just run your labels in, and you have your facing slip stamped up.
But each label or each facing slip, you stamped it with the train and number and your date and your name on it. So if there was mistakes, they traced it back to you,
You just studied hard. And my favorite way of studying was unique. I would lay at home in the daytime, because my wife was working and the kids were in school, and I'd lay at home on the Davenport with this box with these cards and flip them and flip them and flip them, and I'd have the record player or the radio on real low and just barely hear it, and just low, and then I'd get tired and I'd fall asleep for a few minutes and pick up and start in these cards again. And you had to study them just like this. And then it got to the point where you thought you were capable of casing the cards, which was putting it in the little you know, just put little cases out here that, and then put them in the right spots there. And that was, you know, it was the easiest way for me to do it.
When I was up in Vallejo in Chicago, I would study up there. And the thing is to do, you know, you just pick out a state, you got to have some kind of way to memorize it. Well, we make up little stories, you know, and that little story would help you a lot. Use all them names in that town and went to a certain place, you know. Of course, a lot of the stories didn't make any sense to other people, but.
A lot of hard studying. I didn't have a good memory, and I studied very hard. It wasn't hard to do. I mean, you commit yourself to it. You love your job. If you're going to stay with the job, you need to know what they're trying to train you by doing the exams. And so I think I aced practically every one I took. I don't say I could work all the mail for that town, but I could get by with the exams.
Just to hear that steel come down the track, it got me wondering where my next meal might be at. I spend my days at the station as close to a bum as you can get.